Thank you.
Item 8.7, discussion of city schools committee purpose. Why are we here?
Hi, guys. Let me pull up one other thing too, if I can. I think I just received an email earlier today or late in this afternoon. I did speak to this briefly at our previous board meeting, and I know the board desired to bring this item back regarding the vision for the City Schools Committee. I do recall that there was questions about that. I shared in the last board meeting that I observed and watched the video of the June 20th City Council meeting. I believe I might have sent a link of that video to all of you to observe for yourself. I did share that I was concerned that there was confusion between roles, and I also shared I don't think it's specific to Emeryville. I think it happens often probably between municipalities and school districts. I was concerned by kind of the tone of the city council meeting. I was concerned about some of the comments that were made about the school district that I had never heard before watching that video. There were some comments made about, I wish the school district would become self-sufficient one day. We've helped them so much. I've had it with the school district, and I was a little perplexed because as far as I know, our budget situation is actually better than the city's right now. So I shared all of that at the last meeting, and then recently we did have a request for the city schools meeting next week as an example to bring forward test scores and enrollment on the agenda, and as the chair, member Langner responded in helping us develop and finalize the agenda, that those were school district issues. So I remain a little concerned. I did get, however, something from council that were involved in the creation of the JOA, and he did inform me when the JOA was being drafted, the parties sought to strike a balance between overloading the board and council with information and decisions versus not providing them enough information. And JOA was really designed only to require the City Schools Committee to discuss and have action on really 2 or 3 things. One was on items related to O&M and capital replacement costs. Another on issues referred to the from the administrative committee, and that's myself and the city manager, if an ECCL issue comes up and we can't resolve it. And I believe there was one other item regarding budget issues. It was never meant to be a limit of what could be discussed, but it was in sort of, I think, the spirit of a long-term relationship. It was a limit on what the governance committee was required to do. So that was from council that was involved in the creation of the JOA committee today, excuse me, and the email I received today around 5:30 p.m. And so I don't know, I did alert council that neither party is currently following the original language in the JOA. We don't meet monthly. We've had many different schedules, every 4 months or every 3 months, currently every 2 months, well, we're trying to do every 2 months. So that's a little bit of the lay of the land from my perspective.
I'm going to open up for public comment. Okay, I do have a question for you, Dr. Rubio. The JOA and the formation of the City Schools Committee, was it stipulated for ECCL only or for all school sites?
It was primarily, according from the information I have today from council and their work with former city manager Patrick O'Keefe regarding items for ECCL.
Okay. Okay, so purveyance of that committee, City Schools, pretty much sticks to ECCL. So when we vary into ownership of our school property, that was kind of out of bounds regarding the stipulation made for this committee. So I'm trying to get us back to the reason why we're meeting.
I would say yes, you're correct. I think you're correct.
I do want to be careful about sort of encroaching on things that we should be handling at these meetings. I see the City School Committee as being useful for addressing items that are of interest and within the purview of both bodies, both governing bodies. So I mean, to me, it does come down to operations and maintenance, these items that Dr. Rubio mentioned, budget issues, some of the things we've talked about in terms of the sort of joint use of the facility. But I worry, and this came up with the request for enrollment enrollment and test score data. Part of my concern is that although I wasn't here because of work, the school board talked about test score data at our meeting, or previous meeting, and so I think that's a school board issue, and I don't want to sort of meet about the same things multiple times when there's already a forum to do so in the first instance.
So I would like to point out that it is a partnership, it is a joint venture. We do have the after-school program and summer camp and the other services that the city provides on this campus. I believe that there has been a deterioration in the relationship. I think there's some animosity with the superintendent and some council members. I got a letter from, that was forwarded to me where Dr. Rubio did say that the politics of certain board members and city council members were interfering with doing his job. But there is an interrelationship that the city provides after-school programs, and there is an interest in perhaps after-school programs raising test scores. I had wanted to have a presentation on Aim High, which is an after-school program which helps with academic achievement. And I would really like to see a positive relationship, an improved relationship, where I think at the last meeting, I think Diane Martinez talked about waste management and composting and things that bring us together when we're all concerned about the kids that live in our city. And the city has an interest in the fact that the kids that live in our city don't go to this school. And that is one of the reasons why I think these issues about test scores or enrollment actually do have a place for us all to discuss and come together. And the city would probably really like to see more Emeryville families choosing this as their school for lots of reasons. I just feel that there could be a positive effect from having meetings with a common goal, a common good, and not concentrating on what Superintendent Rubio wrote in his letter, ugly personal politics.
Member Rich, I think I'm in agreement with you as far as what you've mentioned on the responsibilities or the items. It looked like it was falling into that operations. The majority of it were. And that's good to bring up because that's what we should keep in forefront because that's what we're charged to do as far as meet together to go over operations of this site. And that's through programming. Now, as far as the results of those programs, that's where you start, I think, getting into a gray area. This is my opinion, but that's where you start getting into a gray area. So, what effect do these programs have on performance? Is it purely academic, or is it purely test scores? Is it just overall environment, and how do you judge that? So, I think that's something to consider when we do meet. But as far as it being a pointed question as far as what are the test scores, it's pretty blatant. And when you ask of that nature, it says let's look at it holistically. Let's look at the approach that we're doing. Are the overall activities that the city provides on this site as a partner, are they doing any good? Or what's the how do we judge those? So I think that's where we start looking at the reason we're together.
Yeah, I think the after-school program is. I don't think the school would survive if the after-school program was just gone. I mean, parents come here, they can't pick them up at the time I mean, I think we have a pretty good enrollment in the after-school program, and they are the kids that go to our school. You know, it is something that I think we need to be positive about it. I think we need to stop being territorial and, you know, try to look at what's best for the kids and try to give people the benefit of the doubt of that their intentions are good.
And respectfully, I honestly, I can't buy that. I can't buy that argument. I think that we've been playing politics with our children for too long,
Yeah.
and my main interest is that we make sure that we draw a line, a political line, so that it's not crossed, it's never crossed, so that we always all do the right thing for our children, and that's the main responsibility of the school board. You know, we talk about spirit. To me, there's such a huge difference between what I'm hearing versus what's being done with regards to being a good partner. And I'm talking very, very specific about the city. You know, a good partner to me doesn't start charging you one day to the other to use the merry-go-round.
I'm sorry.
I'm not done with my comment.
But that's the
A good-
law. You
a
have
good-
to pay your taxes.
A good partnership doesn't try to take away your facilities from one day to the other, which has happened in the past from the city council. It's very tough for me to swallow that. It's very tough for me to believe that there's a genuine interest in the well-being of our children when what they say does not match their actions. And I respectfully, you know, I do welcome any item in that joint agenda, so long as it respects our jurisdiction. I think we spoke a couple of items there that do not belong.
Yeah.
You know, they're out of jurisdiction, I think, from the city, and I think we should leave those topics out, and thank you, Billy, for helping us achieve that. I think this meeting, the joint meeting with the city, can be a productive meeting, so long, again, as if we leave politics out of this, and if actions match what we are really saying, and if we really care, then those actions would match. So I do welcome any item in that that tries to achieve that in that way.
Yeah. I would respectfully add, Member Inch, I appreciate you talking about positive relationships, and I would politely add for everybody that my opinion on that is that it really does require mutual respect and courtesy, and there's not a lot of that sometimes in the past, and it worries me. So I appreciate you talking about positive relationships because it can be difficult, I think, when people aren't courteous to one another. I feel very good about my relationship with Pedro and the city manager, and Pedro's in the crowd tonight. He is our crowd right now. And we have a great relationship, and that's not to hide or cover up. I think, Member Inch, you're correct that there has been some tough feelings between the teachers regarding space and storage and stickers and on the cabinetry and those kinds of things. And Pedro and I and Brad and the city manager, we've all worked pretty hard to improve those, and I think relationships are actually on the upswing with the new principal and the new middle school and elementary principal. So I just want to make sure I'm explicit that if people are sincere about positive relationships, I welcome that greatly, but it does require courtesy. So, I guess one other question for the board is how often, well, one is, you know, if the scope really is based on the JOA and those areas such as maintenance and operations and budget, and any issue where the city manager and I get stuck, and we can always call a special meeting, do we need to meet as frequently? Do we need to meet? Is it better for us to meet, you know, are we meeting once a year, twice a year? What do we do? I don't know what we should do. So that's the other question that floats out there for me.
Well, I think there's some activities that are going on with committees that have started out of that. I think one is the building naming committee. I don't know where we stand with that. I know that we're charged from...
Yes, school board took action.
Okay.
Yeah.
As far as getting that together, then that committee can meet at any time. Basically, it's charged from the Joint Use Committee. With that being said, I'm in the mind to say we adhere to the 3 items listed on the JOA and be done with it, rather than trying to extrapolate gray areas. Just hold to that, and And then based on your conversation with Ms. Langner and the city council representative, that you come to agreement for the agenda and be done with it.
I disagree a little bit. I mean, I do want to sort of draw a line between, school board business, city business, and joint business. But I think there are some things that may be appropriate that aren't in this sort of three, item list or sort of gray. Maybe they could fall in that 3-item list. Maybe they don't. For example, I've spoken with Member Vargas about the possibility of a school resource officer, which is something that the city funds. I'm not sure exactly of the status, but there's been a request to include that on the city school committee meeting agenda for next Thursday. Maybe that falls into the budget category. I don't necessarily think so, but I think that's an appropriate item that is sort of, it does fall under the purview of both the school district and the city council. And so that's an example of an item that I think would be a really productive conversation, worthwhile conversation for us to have, that might not fall into that sort of the narrowest reading of the, I guess, the topics that we can cover. So from my perspective, it's really about, does a topic fall both within the purview of the city and the school board? And to me, that should be the guiding principle.
The hard part is that what I heard June 20th was city officials saying, well, we're concerned, we have an investment that kids are safe. We have an investment in this facility. So the difficult part, I agree with you, the difficult part is that we all do, but that's really, I think, the board's job, right?
From my perspective, I mean, this nation has an interest in educating our kids.
Right.
All elected officials, all people, and so to me, it's this board is responsible for educating our students. Will that sometimes involve bringing in the city? Yes, but it's not. It's our job to do that.
That just echoes back to my jurisdiction, point where we just need to draw that line. There's one particular other item that I don't know whether it falls into these three. I think now that we are contributing to the merry-go-round, I would love to see a stop of the merry-go-round, stop here at ECCL. If we are contributing, then we have a much stronger say in this. And that to me is a topic that should be, again, a topic that shouldn't be politicized necessarily. We shouldn't let that happen. It's something that should make sense for the well-being of our community. And so it seems like that's another topic that I would want us to bring into that meeting.
I agree, Mr. Vargas. I ride merry-go-round on occasion, and the multiple number of routes that have proliferated over the last 3 or 4 years, I think that they'd be able to create a route but we'd have to garner information from the district to say what routes would serve our students the best.
So
But
to me,
that's-
again, yeah,
we're getting into the weeds
we're
on
getting
that.
into the weeds. I see your point. I think that's consistent with sort of the parameters I just described. From my perspective, I think 2 meetings a year to me makes sense, because that gives us a chance to check in and make sure things they're on track. If something comes up, we can call a special meeting. But from my perspective, that seems like enough where we're keeping in contact and we're checking in. But we are running the school, and the city is running the city.
Mm-hmm.
I would support that.
Okay. With that in mind, then this is, I guess, in the purveyance of the actual board organization or the committee organization as far as subcommittees. I know we've created, like I mentioned before, we've created subcommittees for various tasks. And with twice a year, I think that's still a report to start, it would dovetail with that approach.
And again, I mean, if the city raises compelling reasons for us to meet more than that, then I'm certainly open to that, but that's sort of my starting point and where I'm at right now. And this is sort of just the preliminary discussion before next Thursday, from my perspective.
Yeah, and then see how it works with the JOA, because I know we aren't technically abiding by it.
And council did say we can change the city schools committee, as we have multiple times, so we can change it whenever we like as a committee, as a city schools committee. And to Member Langner's point, it was the JOA envisioned that the city manager and the school superintendent would resolve most of the items as needed, or the council members would tell the city manager, please bring this up with the superintendent. Or board members would say to the superintendent, please bring this up with the city, what's going on, we're hearing X. And then if we get stuck, we bring it, or we call a special meeting and say we're stuck. That was what the JOA envisioned as the third area.
Anyone have anything else?
Yeah,
Again, this is preliminary, so.
So yeah,
Was it preliminary? Or?
It's preliminary. If there's a consensus for the board, it
Okay.
sounds like there could be a consensus that you feel like twice a year is enough.
From my perspective, that will be voted on, at the
Sure.
at the
was
city
wondering-
school committee.
Direction
But
that we have a consensus from the board to meet at that time, to meet twice a year.
No.
I mean, that's.
again, I don't think we need to from my perspective, we don't need to form a consensus. Has the
No.
city council, are they coming in as one unit to the meeting? I suspect there's some variance in their positions. It's just, a chance for us to talk amongst ourselves about our thoughts.
Yeah, this was, to your point, yes, this was meant to be an opportunity for you to speak together as a board before the city schools meeting when the same topic comes up next Thursday.
I think it should be agreed upon between the city schools, the city and the school as to when we should meet. I'm thinking twice isn't enough, and 4 times might be too much, so maybe like 3.
But I think that's what we can discuss with the city.
Yeah, I see
But-
your point. I mean, I think it may depend on sort of what the scope ends up being of what we ultimately decide is the scope.
Okay.
All right. That's.
Did we get there from the public?
What's that?
Did we get there from the public? No?
I don't know if I asked that before or not. Did I?
You did.
Yeah, okay. It's getting late.
I know.
Anyway,